Hi everyone, it's Mr. Young, and today we're going to be looking at creating our own tessellations. If you're not quite sure what a tessellation is, don't worry, we'll talk about all that in just a second. But as you're watching this video, please remember that you can pause at any time. Everyone works at their own pace, and this is sort of an artsy project, so you're going to want to stop and think and be a little creative as you move from one phase to the next. When we talk about tessellations, a tessellation is just some figure that can, in geometry, we say tile a plane. So think of the plane in the classroom that we refer to frequently, the floor. The floor in our room is tiled. Those little tiles completely cover the floor. They're a little bit boring because they're square-shaped, but here's a picture of another tessellation that's not square-shaped, but you see, except at the edges where the design has stopped, there are no holes in this pattern. It can completely cover a surface, yet it has an interesting design, and that's our goal with tessellations. So you can tell by looking at it, it's a little complicated, but the procedure for making a tessellation is quite simple. I'm going to walk you through it in this video. All you're really going to need is a pencil, a pen for later, an eraser because you are going to need to erase some of the lines that we draw, and a couple of sheets of paper. The more see-through, the better. So if you have tracing paper, I'll try to provide some in class, but if you have tracing paper, that's the ideal way to go. So we're going to take a piece of tracing paper. You can see this is just one piece of paper that has been split down the center, and it's labeled page A. We're going to draw a rectangle on that. Easiest way to do that is just take an index card and trace it. You really need to be exact with your rectangle. If your rectangle isn't perfectly drawn, your tessellation is not going to tile the plane. There are going to be small gaps when you go to finish, and I'll show you an easy way at the end that we can fix any tiny little errors that we might have. But after you've got your rectangle drawn, what we want to do is just draw some type of a squiggly line. You can see this line here in black, this squiggly S. Take the left side of your rectangle and just draw some kind of squiggly line on it. Make sure it's just a squiggle, not something crazy. It just needs to be a line. Notice it's just a simple squiggle. Again, if you draw some looping thing, that's not going to work out for us. So don't do that. Step 2 is where we're going to need that other paper. Notice that it's labeled page B here. We're going to take our squiggly line that we drew, this one, and trace it perfectly using our see-through tracing paper, and then we're going to move it over to this side. So now you can see in this picture we've got two squiggly lines, this one here and this one here, and they should match perfectly. In order to have them match perfectly, make sure you line those up with the corners here at the top and bottom. When you start, you need everything to be lining up. If they're not lined up now, you're not going to tile the plane, you're going to have holes in your floor. Now we're going to do that exact same process on the bottom of our rectangle. So find the bottom of your rectangle, draw whatever crazy line you like to. Again, move from one side to the other. It can come back on itself, but try not to be too crazy to start. You can always make another one of these. And just as before, we're going to take that squiggly line, copy it onto our tracing paper, and move it up to the top. So this squiggly line here got moved up to the top, again lining everything up. It's at this point where you should be able to see your shape. Completely ignore your rectangle and focus just on your shape. And please ignore my rudimentary sketch of the shape. You just want to focus on that thing. What do we think it might be? I strongly encourage you, when you're thinking about what it could be, to think about multiple options. So here it looks like a rhino. Here it looks like a cat. Notice it's the same shape, it's just filled in differently. It's not the same shape. You can see the cat's tail differs slightly, as do the ears, but they were drawn separately. You can see that you will be able to really use your imagination and come up with whatever you like for this shape. The main idea here is that the shape tessellates. Notice also that it's okay to fill in lots of detail. You can give the cat a face. You can give the rhino eyes. That's fine. Once you know what your shape is and you feel comfortable with it, you're ready to cut it out. So you should have your shape done nicely on tracing paper. You're going to cut it out onto something a little harder. So if you've got an index card, you can always cut that apart and tape it back together, but they get a little flimsy. Some cardstock would be great. Once you've got your piece all cut out on some cardstock and you're happy with it, you're going to start copying that in pencil onto a piece of paper several times. You want to start to see the pattern forming as you put these little puzzle pieces together. As you're working, don't be concerned when you see little problems with where the lines meet up. There's a way to fix that, and we'll do that in the next step. So to fix all those little details that you may have had some troubles with, you can just use a nice thick pen, a Sharpie, to outline all of your shapes. That gives you a nice crisp edge. Make sure you erase all those pencil lines, get lots of detail in them. This cat's got his eyes closed, this one's a little different, that one's not even looking in the same direction. Make your picture fun. Make sure you color some things in. This one looks a lot better with every other cat colored, although they don't all have to be the same color. So you really want to put some time into making your tessellation look nice. And that's really all there is to it. Here's one quick example of a nice, simple tessellation that can come from an index card. Here, you can see where this bottom piece was cut off to create this little V at the top. And after that was done, this back part was cut out to come into the front, and that's why they all fit together nicely. This one looks much more complicated, and it's actually some professional artwork. However, it's still a basic tessellation. Cuts made from the bottom, move to the top, cuts made from the left, move to the right. And if you stare at this tessellation long enough, you'll notice that it's not like the other tessellations. Here we've got 3 dinosaur heads all meeting up and sort of tessellating together. Here we've got their 3 tails doing the same thing, and here we've got their 3 legs doing the same thing. If you kind of traced this out, you might guess that it's more of a triangle that we start with for this particular tessellation. If you'd really like to impress your teacher, you can visit this YouTube link here. Sorry, it's not an actual link, you have to type it in. But you can visit that link there to see another math teacher show you how to do rotational symmetry with a triangle. Good luck making your tessellations.